my legacy, I would like to have impacted women. I would like to have changed people's lives for the better.
Hello and welcome to the Ndini podcast. I'm Sandra Chuma. Every week, I'm bringing you conversations with bold, inspiring, trailblazing, and influential women of African descent. These are women from all walks of life, women who are entrepreneurs, artists, social activists, athletes. Each one of them, in their own way, is changing the narrative on what it means to be an African woman. They'll be telling us about their journeys and sharing their secrets to success. And I hope that by hearing their inspiring stories, you will be inspired. Thembi, thank you again. Welcome. It's so wonderful to have you on the Ndini podcast. As I said, I've been looking you up, and there's some amazing things that I've read about you and on your site. And I wanted to start with, for people who don't know who you are, you telling us who you are and what you do.
Thank you. And thanks for having me today. I am a Zimbabwean woman, beautiful Zimbabwean woman, like all of us. And I moved to Canada about 17 years ago. And during that journey of moving to Canada and settling into Canada, I came across real estate. And I started investing in real estate kind of to spend more time with my children, really, initially, but eventually it became my passion, and I started helping other people how to invest in real estate and teaching them how they could invest in real estate. And of course, your passion as you grow moves from maybe initially it's about money, and then it's about giving back. And now my biggest passion is about giving back and empowering other women.
So let's start, Thembi, with you just said that you're from Zimbabwe and you moved to Canada about 17 years ago. What did you do in Zimbabwe? Tell me about what life was like for you in Zimbabwe, what your background is in Zimbabwe.
I had an accounting background. I really wasn't an accountant, but I was starting towards becoming an accountant. And what had happened to me is I got married when I was young, and that marriage didn't come out well. I discovered a lot of things through that marriage, which really hurt me. And I was kind of broken at that time. And also the political situation in Zimbabwe was changing. The geographical situation was kind of changing, especially against younger people who some of them were me. So obviously, like everybody else, I left Zimbabwe in 2001 and came here to Canada as a refugee. And I didn't have any money. And as I said, I was very broken from the relationship I had. And I kind of came here to repair myself and to start a new life.
Now, Thembi, I read something as I was doing my research for this interview that you literally moved to Canada with $5 in your pocket.
Yes, I had no money and I had a 10-month-old baby. So when I left Zimbabwe, I left her with my mom because I didn't know where I was going. So she stayed behind with my mom, and I moved here alone with $5 in my pocket. And actually, I didn't even have that $5. I got it in the airplane from the guy who said, "Hey, I can show you a $5 bill." So when I got to the airport, I was fortunate enough to meet other people who were very generous, and they kind of paid for my taxi ride to the YMCA, which is where I stayed for 30 days before I started life.
And then how did you start life? How do you even begin to start? You're in a foreign country. You have no money. How did you get started?
Because I came as a refugee, the government was very generous to me. And so they gave me a $500 check. And that's really how I started. I looked for an apartment. I had a roommate. It was $350. It was a bed sitter. So we basically shared the bed, and $350 we paid rent, and the rest I bought groceries and I just started working. My first job in Canada was at a car wash. I didn't know. Somebody told me that car washes were a little bit fancy here compared to where I came from. So I went to a car wash and I spent all day scrubbing the cars for $5. This guy literally gave us $5 all day and said, "Come back tomorrow, I'll give you more." But then I ended up not going back and started working in the industry and eventually found my way to work as a caregiver, helping people, cleaning people up at the hospital and all that stuff. And during that, I realized that this wasn't my life. And it was a very short space of time. I think it was about 6 months. I realized I cannot do this for the rest of my life. And I applied for nursing school and I went into nursing school.
And what was it that made you want to pursue nursing as a career?
Actually, it wasn't my initial goal. my goal was to go back into accounting. And I had a friend who advised me and said, as an immigrant, especially in Montreal, because I was living in Montreal, accounting is going to be a little bit hard for you. I think you should really think of going into nursing. So I never went into nursing because, oh God, I really wanted to be a nurse. No, I went into nursing because it was a quick fix for me at that time.
And then you made a transition into real estate. Tell me about how that transition happened.
Yes. So when I graduated, I moved to a different province, Alberta, and I realized I always had an entrepreneurial mind. Like even when I was in Zimbabwe, I always used to buy things and sell, kind of make money. And being an employee was really never my end goal. So when I moved to Montreal, I realized that, wow, to Edmonton, sorry, this place has so many opportunities. They were building houses left, right, and center. And I kind of knew that this is a place of opportunity and I need to find a way to make it here. So of course, coupled with the realization that nursing job, I mean, it's a great career, but it's not really what I really wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I had to work shift work, and I was a single mom. So I had to leave my daughter with people. They literally babysit my child while I went to work night shift. So I realized I couldn't do that. And I came across, while I was reading, trying to find ways, I came across a newspaper ad which said, get out of the rat race, invest in real estate. And that's really how I got started. I said, wow, maybe I could do this. So I attended a free event and I bought the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I realized, wow, I do not have to work all the rest of my life. I could spend more time with my children. And I bought my first property and my second property, and it just went on from there.
Now, one of the things that people struggle with, I know something that I struggled with, is getting into the real estate because there's so many requirements. You need to have a deposit, you need to have good credit, you need all of these other requirements. How would you advise that someone who's looking to get started, based on how you started, how would you advise someone to make that first step?
The first thing you should do is to buy your first house. Your first home, when you're buying your first home, the requirements are not as hard as they are with your second property or third property. With the first house, the banks can take you for as little as 5%. So what I usually advise my students is instead of buying your first house as a big, nice mansion where you're going to live in, buy a fourplex. That is 4 units. You live in 1 unit, that's still considered your own home. You live in 1 unit and you rent the other 3 units. When you do that, you could take that equity and then go and buy the second home. Or if you do not have equity, use that rent which you are getting as your income, because you can use the rent which you're getting from your properties as your income, and it adds up to your income and it becomes easier to qualify. That's really the best way to get started, and that's really how I got started. I did not buy a fourplex. I wasn't smart enough. I only bought 1 property with 1 home, but going forward I knew what I had to do.
Why real estate, Thembi? Because there are other investments that people can make. They could invest in shares. They can, I don't know what other things that they could invest in. Why do you think real estate is so important as part of someone's financial portfolio?
Other than the fact that it's really the most secure investment, yes, real estate prices go up and down, just like the stocks go up and down. But with the real estate, even if it goes down, you might lose the equity in it, but you're not losing the property itself. I'll just give you an example. And this is something I realized actually when I started investing in real estate. My first property rented for $1,400. And I realized when I was talking to nurses, I'm talking in the nursing industry here, people who were retiring or close to retirement were telling me their pension was going to be $1,800. I said, oh, there's only $400 difference between a pension for a nurse and a rent for a property. So I realized that if I could hold my property for 25 years, it would be paid off in 25 years and I would have $1,400 coming into my pocket. That's like retirement pension right there. $1,400 going into my pocket every month. So really, there's no other way you could do that. And secondly, I'm leveraging. I'm using the bank's leverage. So I'm not using my money. The bank is giving me money to buy this property. I'm not using my own money, and I could get other investors to invest in this, which is something you can't do with stocks. I don't know if you can borrow money from the bank to invest in stocks. And if they fall down, everybody is gone. Like you lose all your money. Unlike the housing market, when the prices go down, that doesn't mean you're going to get wiped out. You still have a renter. People still need a place to stay. That's a need. It's not a want. people always need a place to stay. So you have to invest in something which is really needed by the people, which you know that you can provide a solution in. And that is why I think real estate is more beneficial compared to stocks.
Now, Thembi, you live in Canada now, and I know you've invested in Canada. Have you also invested in Africa? And is there a difference in investing in North America, Canada, versus someone who's sitting in Zimbabwe and looking at investing in property?
Yes, there's a huge difference, certainly. Zimbabwe doesn't have very good lending properties. And I think it's all of Africa. They don't have very good lending rules or lending regulations. The mortgage interest rates are very high. For example, in Zimbabwe right now, if you go to most banks, it's 15% interest rate. Yet in North America, it's only 5%. And that's expensive. In Canada, it's like 3%. So already there's that disparity. And also, because there's no regulations in the rental industry as well, your tenant profile is completely different than the one you get here, where you know if they don't pay rent, they are kicked out on the first day of the month. Back home in Zimbabwe, in most African countries, there's not much regulations. So I've found when I'm teaching my students who are in Africa, I've actually had a lot of learning myself because I've realized what I was trying to teach them, which is very North Americanized, is a little bit different in Africa. So they have to tweak things, they have to be creative and change things. I haven't heavily invested in Africa, except for South Africa, for the reason that the returns on your investment are not as lucrative as the return on your investment if you're to invest here. And I found, especially for Zimbabwe, the property are very overpriced.
Now, you've talked a few times in our conversation about teaching and about your students. Tell me about that. What do you teach? How do you teach? What are the things that you teach about?
So most of my students, basically, I teach creative strategies and marketing for real estate investors. So how they could buy, what I mean by creative strategies, is how they could buy properties with no money or very little money of their own. Because I found the challenge with people is they don't have any money to get started. How do you get started? Like you just asked Sandra, the first question was, how do you get started? You need a lot of money. Yes, you do need a lot of money, but it doesn't have to be your own money. And that is what I teach you to do. How do you get started with other people's money or using other people's properties?
Now, I just recently attended something that you were putting on, Thembi, which was a phenomenal online event. It was a summit. Tell me about that. And is that something that you do on a regular basis? And what was the intent behind that summit?
So when I did my first summit, the Global Real Estate Summit, I really kind of wanted to bring awareness to people that real estate investing is the best way to go about it, and you should really invest in real estate. But what I realized, something interesting happened with that first summit. I realized that there were no women. And not because I didn't look for women, but because most women were not at that stage of investing in real estate. And that really hurt me. That really, as a woman, I was like, this is very interesting. This is like a man's field. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the population of women is like 51%. And I only have one woman in my summit. And that woman worked for somebody else who was a male figure. So I decided I needed to bring awareness to women and to show them how they could invest in real estate as well. And I started bringing these women together saying, what is it that you think women are not investing in real estate? And kind of finding out really what are the obstacles for women. So I brought women for financial freedom and financial independence to kind of share the obstacles, what they really think is the reason why women are not investing in real estate or even don't have financial freedom and how they could do it. And it was such an amazing summit because there were so many aha takeaways for my students and even for me. It's because sometimes as women, we try to use the masculine energy to try to keep up with the men, but we don't have to. We could use our femininity.
And is there a difference that you see in terms of women's approach to finance, to investing in real estate in North America or Canada, as an example, versus what you see in our country, in Zimbabwe?
I don't think there's really a difference in regards to geographical location for women, but I think it all comes back to the empowerment portion. As you know, in our country, most women don't have the financial resources. Here, yes, it's not all the women who have the financial resources, but most women can go and buy their own home. So that's really what I will say is the difference. But I think in terms of the mindset and the will and the drive, everything is the same. If anything, people in Zimbabwe are more driven because of their situation.
Now, you have something else that I saw as I was researching for this interview. You have an upcoming African safari. Tell me about that and what the intention is for that.
Oh, I'm so excited about this one. Thanks for asking and thanks for bringing it up. So, when I went home, I visit home, obviously, to Zimbabwe. There's something which was happening to me towards the last end of last year. I was realizing that I was kind of losing not really the passion, but I wasn't as driven as I used to be. And really, why I started my biggest why I even started this coaching industry it was to empower women in Africa. And so as I went through, you get used and you get so busy in your life, in your day-to-day life, I realized that I was kind of losing my passion. And it happened that I had a trip coming to Zimbabwe, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to try to reconnect with my why on this trip and reconnect with really why I started doing this. So during that trip, I visited disadvantaged women, I should say, and kind of started talking to them about their life and really how they live their life and everything. And when I did this, interestingly, I thought I was going to help them. But at the end of the day, I was the one who benefited the most out of that relationship because I realized how entitled I was, how selfish I had become, how really self-centered I had become even. And that the drive I came back with was different. And I thought to myself, how could I help other women? Some of them have never been to Africa. I have a friend of mine who went to Africa, Ariana, who went to Zimbabwe after I had recommended it, and she came back changed completely. And I said, I need to do this. I need to help these women go and realize from North America or wherever they are, go and realize or learn or rediscover themselves, rediscover the power they have as women, because as women, we are so powerful. And not only will they rediscover the power they have in themselves, but they'll also give back to these women in Africa. There's a lot of women who are trying to make it in Africa and working so hard, but they don't have the direction and the guidance which they could, like a business skill sort of, which we could help them with. So imagine if you could take just one idea you have here and go and give it back to wherever you are. It doesn't have to be Africa, it could be India, it could be Asia, but a third world country. Just go and give it to a third world continent. How much difference you could make, because the women there love sharing their community, they live together, and just take one idea and go and share it with 10 women. The ripple effect will be amazing. So really, this trip is not just for having fun in a safari, but it's also to give back and for us to also be inspired.
We'll definitely link to this in the show notes, but where can people find more information?
So it is an African safari, but I will give you the link because it's kind of a long link. So we'll put it down below. But there is, if you go to this page where we'll be linked to, we'll put it down below. There's information about the trip and the details, and you can apply. It's an application process, obviously, because I'm trying to bring certain people. I don't have to bring the whole world. You want to bring people who are going to make it enjoyable. It's a 13-day trip, so you want to spend time with people who really are passionate about giving back and people who really are passionate about expanding their business, because that's one thing we're going to be doing, hot sitting each other's businesses and expanding our businesses. So as I said, we'll link below with this interview, and you can just go and look at it and just learn more about the details. It is a longer trip, and of course, the investment is a little bit on the high end. Mm-hmm.
That's exciting. That's really exciting. And I'm interested to know, because you've talked a lot about, on this safari, how you're looking for people who are looking to give back, who are looking to grow. What's in your future? What do you see? What's the growth that you want for yourself?
That's a very interesting question. I like that. I would like to, my legacy, I would like to have impacted women. I would like to have changed people's lives for the better. And that's really where I see myself going. It's not about financial right now. It's about what the money can do for me. If I could make an extra $5, what would that $5 do for the other people who I could impact? And what knowledge could I share with those people so their life is better? So really, my future, looking at my future, I see myself helping more women just start their own businesses and just expand their businesses and kind of keep going and growing, because we know that when you impact one woman, you really impact the village. That's really how it works.
So you talked about advice and helping other women and impacting. What do you think, or what's the best advice that you've ever been given, or what's the best advice that you would give to another woman, regardless of what industry or field she's in?
The best advice I ever received was just get started. I was thinking of investing in real estate for a few months. I mean, not a long time, but for a few months. And I remember sharing this with my patient. I was at the hospital and I just told him what I was thinking and everything. And he said to me, Thembi, just get started. And that has always stuck with me. And that's the advice I always give to people. We try to be perfect. We try to make it so perfection. If you look at my videos from the time I started to maybe now, you will realize that there's a huge difference, because I am not a perfectionist. I just do it and just throw it out there. You just have to do it. So whatever it is that you're thinking of right now, take the risk. What's the worst that could happen? For me, in my case, what's the worst that could have happened? I really already came to Canada with $5 in my pocket. What's the worst that could happen? Lose everything? Well, that's not new. I've done that before. So think of the situation where you've had the worst and think, what's the worst that could happen? Could I really go back to that situation? And if you do, well, you'll start afresh. So just get started.
Now, you strike me as a pretty fearless woman. And of course, as you just said, it's all about just getting started, get over your fear and get started. But is there anything that you would do if you were not afraid?
There's a lot of things I could do if I were not, if I wasn't afraid. I think we all have fear. I think everybody has fear, and sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. But what I notice is fear doesn't let us really reach our greatest potential. And I think if I wasn't afraid, I probably would have the highest potential and highest impact in the world.
What do you think your superpower is?
Communication. Is that a superpower?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You say that with hesitation, then you laugh. Like, why do you say that? Why are you laughing about that?
Because when I think of superpowers, I'm thinking of, Spider-Man rescuing people, and so I'm thinking of all these people flying and people with potential. I'm not thinking about doing as a superpower. I'm thinking of, these superhero actions. Mind you, I have a 5-year-old who's obsessed about superheroes. So that's the first thing that came to mind. I'm like, I could be superwoman. But you know what? Thanks for asking that, because just saying that, realize that I'm saying Spider-Man rescuing other people, but really that is my superpower, to help and impact other people, to make other people feel better about themselves, or to even reassure them.
So yay, you've discovered your superpower.
Yeah.
And what are you most excited about in your life right now?
I think spending time with my children. My daughter is graduating. She actually just had a grad walk, but she's officially graduating June 13. And I'm really excited about seeing her grow and leave home and kind of go to university. I think that's one of the biggest achievements I have made as a single mom, bringing this beautiful girl up and her being able to graduate high school and go on to university. And I'm so proud of that. And yeah.
What would you say to her? So as your daughter's preparing to take the next chapter in her life, what advice would you give her?
I tell her all the time, be fearless. Be fearless, because there's so many things out there which are going to come to us, which are going to hinder our success, our progress, and our capabilities, really, and abilities. Just be fearless. As I said, just do it. Just do it. Just take the risk. What's the worst that could happen?
And what are you most grateful for?
I guess it goes back to the same thing of grateful for my children, grateful for my family, supportive family. I think I have the most amazing family. I'm sure everybody would say that about their family, but I'm so grateful for my family and for the life I have, and and to God, really.
And you're As mom, you talked about how you're a single mom. What's the greatest lesson your children have taught you?
To be creative. I'm realizing that creativity, when we are born with this creativity, and it's taken away from us as we grow up because school and structure and companies and one of the things my kids have taught me is creativity because they are they still have those natural instincts in them and that creativity in them, which hasn't been taken away and hopefully will never be taken away by anybody. So that's one of the great lessons I've learned, to just be creative.
And what do you love most about yourself?
My smile.
I love that. That was instant. You didn't have to think about that.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Hey, okay, so we've got over the serious part of the interview, so you can breathe now. And we're going to do a quick fire round. And so the rules of the quick fire round is just a way for people to get to know you a little bit better, but in a fun kind of way. So the rule is, I'm going to ask you questions. You don't have time to think. It's the first thing that comes to mind based on the question that I ask you. Okay?
Ready.
All right. So describe yourself in 3 words.
Beautiful, smart, intelligent.
When you hear the word successful, who's the first person that comes to mind?
Oprah.
Your favorite book?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Why?
Because it changed my life.
You know, I know this is quick fire round, but let's just, because so many people, I actually am one of maybe the few people on this planet who has not read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, no.
Yes. What is it about that book?
That book changed the way I think about life. Like, I came obviously from an employee mindset. Even though I was entrepreneurial, I didn't really realize the power of entrepreneurship until I read that book. And that book made me realize that, first of all, it made me realize that I could do anything and I could have anything as long as I find a way to make the money. So, for example, if I wanted to buy a new television, I stopped saying, oh, I can't afford it. I have to say, what can I do to afford a new television set? And really, that kind of changed the way I thought about everything. Reading that book changed my life, yeah.
I just had an idea as you were saying. First of all, I have to obviously read it, but we'll probably do a giveaway. Give that away as the gift for this episode. Thank you, Thembi.
Oh, nice, yeah.
What's your favorite gift to give? Speaking of gifts.
Time.
Favorite gift to receive?
A massage.
Now, I know where you live, and I know you live in a beautiful, beautiful place. What's your favorite thing about the place where you live?
Mountains.
Favorite item of clothing?
Oh, I don't care for clothes. I'm going to be honest. I just wear anything.
What's your favorite time of day?
Morning, 4 a.m.
Ooh, that's early. Why?
Because my brain just starts firing up and I just can't stop. That's where I get the best ideas.
Name 2 people you'd like to have dinner with and why.
Oprah. Just to, oh God, that's a hard one. Oprah, probably to ask her how she got where she got to and what the obstacles she met during that journey, because I know that it wasn't an easy journey for her. And the next person, I don't know this person, who that person is, but I would like to meet somebody from a third world country who's achieved leaps and bounds. And when I say leaps and bounds, not financially, but impacting other people, more like a Mother Teresa, if she was still alive, but somebody like that. I still don't know who that is. I'd like to have dinner with them and find out what drove them to do that and how they did.
We'll have to look for that person. Okay, speaking about dinner, your favorite meal or your favorite thing to eat?
I like spaghetti. Yeah. And I like Thai food. So if I were to choose, I'll go to Thai restaurant.
What's the last great meal that you did have?
Oh, I just had barbecue chicken last night. It was good.
What can't you get through the day without?
A podcast. I'm so addicted to podcasts. I have to listen to one podcast a day, and meditation.
Interesting. And what are some of your favorite podcasts?
Lewis Howes is one of my favorite. Ray Edwards, Amy Porterfield. And one I discovered not too long ago, it was called Making Obama, but it's Making Oprah actually, but then it transitioned to Making Obama. So it interviews basically the life of Obama, how he started and where he is right now. That's a very great podcast. I've really enjoyed listening to that.
Me too. As you said, I heard it when it was Making Oprah, and I listened to
Mm-hmm.
that, and then I learned so much from things I would
Yeah.
never have known. But yeah, great podcast, great selection of
Mhm.
podcasts, very interesting. And what's the screensaver on your phone or your computer?
Actually, right now, I just changed it yesterday. That's funny. It was just a black background, but now it's I'm a member of the Jeff Walker Launch Club Life, whatever, and it says I'm able to do anything. I have no limitations. I'm limitless, and I'm living the launch life.
Oh,
It's longer than this, but this is just a paraphrase. Yeah. Mhm.
that's a fun. You're able to do anything.
Yeah.
That's wow. What's your favorite app?
Probably the podcast app. Can't remember what it's called on Androids, but it's the podcast app.
Okay. Other than your phone and your purse, what do you carry with you every day?
My sunglasses.
Most
No.
that's funny. Keep going.
No, that it's hot. That's probably what I carry. My phone and my purse and my sunglasses.
What's the most favorite place that you've ever visited?
New Zealand, Cape Ringa. It's kind of at the end of New Zealand. I know it sounds silly to say at the end, but it is really at the end of New Zealand. It's called Cape Ringa. And that has been my favorite place. And is it okay if I explain why?
Yes, please. I'd
Okay.
love to hear.
Yeah, I love history. And what I learned about this place when I went the first time is that the Maori people, who are the native people of New Zealand, long time ago, when their people died, they would come to this place because they believed it was the end of the world. They would bring their ashes of the dead people and throw them at this water so that they could, because they are closer to heaven. Kind
Ooh.
of, that, yeah, because it's so close to heaven, because it's the end of the world. And I really connected with that. And when I went to that place, it was so peaceful, so undisturbed, so serene, and I've just liked it. And I believe there's something about that place. Yeah. I still believe there's some supernatural power. Something interesting happened when I went. I went with my brother and his wife, and we're looking down, and my brother's wife is Yvonne, and there was something written, when people write on the sand, it said, "I love Yvonne." And yeah, and I still believe it wasn't a coincidence, even though everybody else who I was with think it was just, oh, somebody just knew Yvonne. But I still believe something happened there.
Because
Yeah.
it's not a like a Mary or a Jane. Like Yvonne
No.
is not a, it's, I mean, it's not a
Yeah.
very common name, right? So,
Yeah.
wow.
I still remember that. It said, "I love Yvonne." And you could see it from up there. And to get down, I don't know how the person who wrote it got down there, because I've never seen anybody walk down there. I've been there twice now. I've never seen anybody walk down there. It's more like, it's really like up high, and you're looking at the water down there. And so that really was interesting for me. And I still believe there's something more spiritual there, in that place.
Interesting. I have to go there. It's not a New Zealand, I have to say, is not a place I've ever thought about going to. But now you say that, I'm intrigued. Okay, back to our quickfire round. What would you say if you had to pick a favorite song, or what would be the theme song of your life?
It's an African song, so it says, what's the translation now? That's probably the theme song of my life, really, and I sing it all the time. God took me from where I was to where I am now, kind of like He's been uplifting me all this long. And for me, it's a true story based on where I came from. Like, I have a very humble beginnings. Growing up, like, my mom lived the first really time I opened my house. We lived in a one-roomed house with all the kids, and we shared bathroom with other neighbors. So when I look at that background and where I am right now, there's really no explanation to it but to say I'm what I am because of God. And so that's really my favorite song. It's says He takes me from here and He puts me there. It's really hard to translate it in our in our language, but yeah, that's kind of what it says. Yeah.
We say it in our language.
Ndebele. Okay. Ungithatha lapha angibeke la. Angisuse lapha angifake la. So uJesu lo bubele la. What does bubele mean? Ane hana nini? Jesus anehananeni. He's got a purpose for me, I think. That's what it means. Or he cares for me. God cares for me. He's taken me from this stage to the next stage and to the next stage. And he keeps uplifting me up from one stage to another.
I don't even know how to transition to the next question because that is so beautiful. What do you wish you had more of in your life?
Probably more time. I don't think we could ever have enough time. But probably more time to spend with my family. I wish I could spend more time with my family. And when I say my family, I mean my sisters and brothers.
I guess for you and anybody else who lives, in the diaspora, is that separation of distance, right?
Yes.
What's a question you wish people would ask you?
What is my why?
Okay, Thembi, what is your why?
To empower women so that no women ever stays in a relationship because of money, or no women ever stays in their circumstances because of finances.
Thank you. That is beautiful, Thembi. That is so beautiful. Now, where can people find you, or where can they find the work that you're doing on social media, your website?
Yeah, the easiest way to find me will be through my real estate Real Riches. And I know that during this call, we did talk about real estate, but also about my passion. But the best way to find me will be through my real estate website, which is realestaterealriches.com. Facebook, you can go to facebook.com/realestaterealriches. And that's where you'll find me. Instagram, I believe my Instagram name is Thembi Bheka, which is my name and last name. And for Twitter, it's @InvestorThembi.
And we'll make sure we link to all of your profiles as well as the information about that upcoming African safari that you mentioned. And I just want to ask you about that. Like, what made you, it seems pretty self-explanatory, but I'd love to know, what made you name your company, the work that you're doing, Real Estate Real Riches?
There was really not much thinking to that. It was just, what can I name it? Real Estate Real Riches. Okay, that's what came up. There was really no thinking. And at that time, actually, when I started this company, at that time it was, my company name is not Real Estate Real Riches. This is just the trading name. But when I started this, I thought, what has real estate done for me? It kind of has given me stability. And I felt really it's where you can get, we do a lot of things, online marketing and all that stuff, but really it's not real wealth. I probably shouldn't have named it real wealth, but it's not real wealth. It's it can disappear anytime if your clients go away. But with real estate, it's always there. It's real. It's always there. It's tangible. You can touch it. So real estate, it's real riches, really. Yeah. But I don't like the word riches. I don't really like the word riches. It just came about.
Why don't you like riches?
It feels like it's very hype. I think people take rich for financial, but rich is really more than financial. I think wealth kind of describes it better because it's not just about the financial aspect of things, but it's also about your spiritual wealth, your emotional, your physical being. So I feel like riches just kind of addresses just money part, and it's really not just about money.
And which is why you're doing the African safari, because from what I can understand, that is more than just talking about one dimension. It really is looking at women holistically.
Yes.
Thembi, it's been such a joy. I'm so glad you were able to make time to chat with me today. I've learned a lot. I've learned about a new book that I need to be reading for sure. So I will report back to you once I've read it. And we're definitely going to do a giveaway. I'm going to get a copy of the book that we'll give away to a listener of the podcast. So thank you very much for that insight. Now, I have one more question for you. You're my fellow Zimbabwean girl, so I don't need to explain it. But Ndini, as you know, means I am. Finish that sentence for me. I am.
I am a Zimbabwean woman who's proud to help other Zimbabwean women. Is that enough?
That is enough. That is more than enough. Thembi, thank you, thank you, thank you. I wish you so much continued success with all the amazing work that you're doing. I know it's something that's very much needed because generally, whether it be us as Zimbabwean women, African women, as women in North America, finances tends to be something that I know a lot of women struggle with. So I'm so glad that we have someone like you who's helping to educate us and helping to empower us.
Thank you for saying that. And, I know that I kind of said women and Zimbabwean, but it's really not just Zimbabwean women. It's women across the world. And anybody, even male and female. My audience is male and female because really, I think everybody does need financial freedom because it helps families and it helps change your outlook. But because as a woman, I'm even more passionate about women across the world just to help them and impact them in a better way.
Thank you so much, Thembi. Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for the gift of your time. And we will definitely stay in touch.
Thank you so much for having me, Sandra.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ndini podcast. I don't take even a single listener for granted. As you know, my goal with this platform is to help shift and change the narrative on Africa, and in particular about African women. But I need your help to do that. Please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or Stitcher. You can also follow us on SoundCloud. And please share. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review on iTunes. It helps me to bring great guests to the show, and it also helps others discover the podcast. And of course, I always want to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on my conversation with our guest today and what you took away from it or what inspired you. I'd also love to hear from you if you have suggestions for other women you think I should absolutely have on the show. Our handle on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook is @Ndini Media. Or you can reach out to me through our website, which is ndini.com. That's ndini.com. Until next time, I'm Sandra Chuma. Be well.